Settling is not an option for me. Everything I desire is already mine. What if you can have it all? Because every day is for the girls. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of For the Girls. I'm your host, Victoria Alario. And today we are talking with Kathryn Sauser, the founder of SoberFitGirl, where she coaches women and hosts a podcast, which I will actually be featured on as well this week. And the episodes, this one and that one, are live at the same time. So after you listen to this episode, you should definitely head over to the SoberFitGirl podcast and check out my interview there, because it was such a good conversation about all the things that I know you girls love to hear. And speaking of what you girls love to hear, today on For the Girls with Kathryn, we dive into sobriety, dating drunk, dating sober, celibacy, boundaries, and so much more, again, that I know you girls will love to hear. Of course, video is available for this episode on Spotify and YouTube, so I would love for you girls to head to one of those platforms to watch it. But wherever you're streaming, whether it's Spotify, Apple, wherever, please show some love with a rating and a review. On Spotify, you can leave a comment on this episode. On Apple, you could leave just a general podcast review on my podcast page. And if you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But I'm not going to waste any more time talking about any more juju stuff. Now let's get right into the episode. Okay, everyone, please welcome Kathryn to For the Girls. I am so excited for this episode. We just had a little chat before we had a chat before the chat. We just started talking before recording, and I know this is going to be a really good one. So, Kathryn, please introduce yourself to the girls and tell them all about you.
Hey everyone, my name is Kathryn. I am the founder of SoberFitGirl. I have been working on my relationship with alcohol and just past 5 years sober. I have a little experience in sober dating and drunk dating, so I'm just really excited to hopefully share my experience and help any ladies out, with their relationship with alcohol and putting themselves out there.
Yeah. Wow, 5 years. Does it
Thank
feel
you.
like a long time, or does it feel like time flew?
The first year of my sobriety felt very slow because I was working through so many things and I just wanted to get through that breakdown before the breakthrough. But then as time has gone on, it's getting faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
And I just want it to slow down. But it comes in waves. There's sometimes where it can feel like really slow, and then there's sometimes where it can feel really fast. But yeah, one day I woke up and I was 5 years sober, and I was like, how did I even get here?
Wow. Well, that's amazing. So
Thank
good
you.
for you. I'm curious just about the journey in general.
Mhm.
What made you even start, to the journey of sobriety? And then how did it become so seriously part of your identity that it led to you building this brand of Sober Fit Girl?
Great question. So I always like to tell it this way. Like, I was sober curious before I got fully sober. I knew there was a relationship with alcohol, a problematic relationship with alcohol, 3 years before I got fully sober, and that's when I kind of just started to immerse myself in the sober curious world personally. At that time, I also was a fitness coach. I had a big online platform. It was called Sweat with Kat, and it was growing. But on the weekends, I would get blacked out, and then I would, miss out on a lot of career opportunities. And I just started to realize I was missing out on so much more when I did drink, because from my experience, I never was an everyday drinker. I'm a full blackout Sally party girl, like the perfect party girl identity. Okay. So, then you're getting older. I got sober at 30. So from 27 to 30, I'm like, who do I want to be as a grown woman? And I just started swinging back and forth from the drunk me to the sober me. And I started to really fall in love with the sober me. And then one random Tuesday, I woke up the day after of a really bad night, not something new, just a really bad night, and my journey of moderation ended, attempting moderation. I was like, all right, this is it. I'm going all in. I promised myself I would do a year sober. And it's quite interesting because once I hit a year sober, I didn't even say, like, oh, should I go back? Should I not? It was just it was done. And then as time went on, in around 2022, end of 2021, I started my TikTok. And that's when I just started sharing my experience. And it just blew up. I had so many viral videos of, again, just sharing my experience of my horror drunk stories. And so I put in my website, Sober Curious Fitness, and then Sober Fit Girl just took off. That's the gifts of sobriety. Like, you don't know what you don't know when you're getting sober. Like, there's so many beautiful things that happen, but when you're on day one, it's like you have no idea, but you do know that, only great things are going to happen when you start exploring your relationship with alcohol. Because if you're questioning if you have a problem with alcohol, more than likely you have a problem with alcohol.
Yeah, it's so true. And you know what? Like, I think that we don't see it as a problem because it's just normalized in general.
Right.
Like in
Mm-hmm.
in America, I mean, I know in other countries too, but like here it's like you're drinking from as soon as you're in high school, really. Like, underage drinking is very normal. Um and as you get older, it's just part of the culture. You're drinking in college, you're blacking out in college, and then you finally turn 21, and then you're allowed to actually drink. So now you have 8 years of drinking under your belt in the first place. And then it's like, now I could do this publicly, like out at the bar. Then you go out, like, it's like that's what the lifestyle really is. Like, the going out lifestyle is created around, is like that's what you do on the weekends. You go out and
Mm-hmm.
you drink. And so naturally, I think blacking out, missing opportunities, it's just like a byproduct of that. It's just like kind of what happens when
Mm-hmm.
drink too much. So I don't think anyone actually sees it as a problem, because it's just like it's just what happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say that now that I'm sober and I still have the same friend group as I did in my drinking days, you will start to see when you go out with your normal drinking friends that you always were the most blacked out of the group. Because, yes, it is very normalized when you are hanging out in a party scene. But I started to realize there was a very big difference of my drinking from my friends' drinking. For example, I would wake up with the most horrific hangovers. I was debilitated in bed. I never remembered what happened. I always embarrassed myself, and my friends rarely ever had that happen. We would go on trips together, and I'm very close to my friend group, and I am the only sober one. And in my drinking days, I was always the worst. And I would miss out on the next day if we were on a trip together, and they would be like, Kat, you were so funny last night, aka you were so embarrassing. And I think that's the great thing about when you choose to be sober curious and you choose to go down this path, you will start to see the contrast between you, problematic drinker, if you are, and your quote normal drinking friend. I'm not saying my friends didn't embarrass themselves, we all did, but mine was catastrophic compared
Yeah, yeah,
to them. Because
yeah.
I travel. I went to Ibiza with my friends. I've gone to Europe, traveled all over Europe with my friends who drink. And they don't think, oh, I can only have two tonight. They're
Yeah,
not thinking that way. And
yeah,
I always was. I was like, let's go. First
yeah,
drink, second drink, third drink, shots.
yeah, like
It's
you said,
just,
the party
yeah.
girl.
Yep.
Yeah. But you know what? It's so what you just said right there about how, like, in the next morning, the next day, your friends are like, "Oh, you were so funny last night." It's like these are the things that, like, I think make it like almost harder to get sober, is that the romanticizing of like the morning debrief with your friends. And it's like you went out last night, shit got crazy, and then like you look forward to the next morning, like debriefing with your friends, having all the funny stories, talking about, like, these are things that I think create that sense of like
Hmm.
FOMO, which you talked about. And so we'll talk about FOMO, but like it creates that sense of FOMO of like, but if I don't, then like I'm not going to be there for this, or I'm going to miss out on that. And like it feels like um it just feels like giving up, alcohol means giving up fun and being a part of something, which ultimately is obviously not the truth. And you spoke about having FOMO, and you put it into a perspective of it being the opposite, like how
Mhm.
much more you actually miss out on, how much more you gain by, being sober,
Mhm.
your dignity, the money in your bank account, all this kind of stuff. So I would love for you to share that perspective on like getting that romanticized thought, like perspective out of your head, removing the FOMO and switching the perspective.
Yeah, so I always like to think of it as you are missing out on so much more when you do drink, but it's hard to see that until you start to get proof, right? Because my baseline was partying, getting drunk, waking up, hating myself. And so to me, it was like, how am I ever going to have fun and travel and, be sober? So I decided, since I already know what my party girl identity was, I wanted to get to know sober cat. And the more you start to get sober and then you wake up and you're proud of yourself and you have your phone and your purse and you're not next to a stranger and you're not like, what did I say last night? You wake up in peace and you work out and you eat healthy and your body feels good and you don't have a headache and your career is going wild and you're starting to meet, maybe the love of your life. And that's when you start to get that proof, and alcohol will always be there. I think that's the hardest thing when people are choosing sobriety or choosing to be sober curious. They're like, well, I can never drink again. What am I going to do? And see what happens. Like, get proof. See what the sober life feels like so you can see what you're missing out on when you do drink. And try to, when you're thinking of the word, okay, fun, all right, is for me, I always like to share from my experience, is embarrassing myself on dates, hating myself, missing out on workouts, don't remember where I am, can't find my phone, missed out on career opportunities fun? Like, is it fun? And that's when that perspective changes, when you have to start like labeling certain, scenarios as fun. And it's like, no, that's actually embarrassing. That's horrifically embarrassing as a 30-year-old adult woman going, and this is one of my drunk stories, like going on a date midday, smashed, embarrassing herself. I'm at Soho House in New York City, like walking out, like they're like, she can't be served. It's noon. Like, is that fun? Is that confident? I think with dating, it's like, how am I gonna ever date alcohol free? I mean, I have to have that, that sip to feel confident and bubbly, but that's not confidence. Like, confidence to me is showing up as a sober woman, even if sober curious and you just don't want to, don't, I always say don't drink on the first day, but we can go more into that. But it's like, is your drinking confident? I think it's all about a perspective change, and sobriety gives you that, but you have to have some sobriety under your belt to start to see the difference of what you're missing out on when you do drink versus what you're missing out on when you don't drink.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And, actually, so for those listening, there's going to be a podcast swap happening where I'm interviewed on Kat's podcast as well, that she shares with co-host. And when we just did the interview yesterday, I actually spoke about what you just said in particular,
Mhm.
because I was saying that there's this, not to say stigma, whatever the saying, there's like this like thing around alcohol where people believe that alcohol gives you confidence, where they call it like liquid courage, and it's like, oh, I can't imagine going on a date sober because I need that liquid courage. Like, oh my god, what would I say, what would I do, how would I act if I was sober? Like, the lack of confidence people have in themselves sober is actually quite scary, like when you really think about it. Like, the fact that so many people feel that they need alcohol to be they're like, I need a drink to be myself, like, which that's
Mhm.
actually quite the opposite when you think about it. It's you're less yourself the more you drink. And yeah, there's just that saying around like having liquid courage and like needing a drink to break the ice and whatever the case is. And so when it comes to dating, I want to really talk about that. Like, I think a lot of girls put so much pressure on themselves as well to like do everything right, and they don't want to like, I don't want to say too much, I don't want to do too much, I don't want to whatever. So like they have a drink to like ease that, just to bring them a sense of relief, to ease that anxiety, to calm their nerves and whatnot. Um, and it's actually really bad, because you realize how much of a lack of confidence there actually is when it comes to dating. And I'm somebody who, I always went back and forth with sobriety and, drinking and not drinking. And I can't say that I ever was on that level of like constantly blacking out and whatnot. But I definitely was somebody who, I didn't like the way I felt drunk. I didn't like giving up that control over my body and my voice, and waking up the next day and regretting everything that I said to somebody, and that like, no filter. Like, I hated that feeling. And so sobriety, like not drinking, and I've gone months and I've gone years without drinking, and nothing has ever brought more peace than knowing like you're in complete control of what you
Mhm.
say, what you do, how you act. And so while I was single, a lot of the time I was not drinking at all. And one thing that I would say triggered me when I was sober dating were guys who were clearly immature, who don't understand, and they would call me boring. And I hated being called boring, because I guess, like I said before, like, it's just, drinking is so normalized that like if you don't, it's like, why, what's wrong with you? So when I would be called boring, oh, just have a drink, oh my god, you're so boring, like, I always knew off the bat I would never see that guy again, because like I hated that feeling. I hated being talked to that way. I hated people putting me in this box of being boring simply because I didn't want to be drunk. um and yeah, and so dating sober was, I would say, the best thing that I ever did, even going through things like that, because quite frankly all it did was allow me to weed out the guys that were not for me. And then of course there were the guys who were super respectful as well. So I would love to hear about your experience with dating not sober, dating sober, and then even like that middle ground. Like, what is sober curious to you? Does that mean that you are having a drink, or are you not having a drink? Just like, give me your whole dating experience through all that.
Well, sober curious is you are exploring your relationship with alcohol, and it could look any way, such as you're, drinking once a month or once a week, or you're not drinking for a month and then you're drinking to see. Like, there's there is a huge difference between my sober curious journey and my sober journey. I was not saying I want to be sober when I was sober curious. I was just like, I'm curious, what is this sober life? But the day I chose to be sober, it's an energy, it's a feeling, it's a knowing that like you are done attempting moderation. Like, that's the biggest thing for me when I went from sober curious to sober. It's like, all right, I've tried everything. Like, I hate moderation. I don't even want to do it. It's not working. I want to be sober. So I always like to share that, like, in sober curious is always usually the path into sobriety. Many women come into the sober fit girl and they are sober curious, and oops, I'm sober. So it's okay to be curious. It's okay to be curious about your relationship with alcohol. It's actually a great thing. Like, that means you want to improve your life. As for dating, drunk dating was bad for me. Very, very bad. I come from, my father passed away when I was 21. I have very strong daddy issues. Let's just be honest. Like, in my childhood, like, my dad really did favor my sister. I just want to be honest, which created a lot of insecurities in myself. And here's the gift of sobriety. I didn't even know this until I got sober. Like, when you remove alcohol, you actually can learn about why you attract certain people in your life. And I always attracted, not the greatest guys in my drinking days. And the thing is I needed to be liked so bad by every single guy, doesn't matter who you are, in my drinking days. Okay. So I would go into the date and be like, okay, well, I don't like myself. I struggle with serious insecurities around men. So of course I'm going to drink. And then when you drink, it's like you're doing it because you are insecure. It's like you said, it's like, I feel like I have to drink to be secure. That's a problem. And then when you get sober, like for me, I realize now, I'm not saying I'm perfect at attracting the greatest men in my sobriety, but I can see the red flags faster. I can learn about myself faster. I can learn about who I want in a partner faster. And like the biggest thing too is, if you're sitting at a dinner table with a guy and he's pushing drinks on you, what do you think is his intentions? Let's be honest. You know, he wants to hook up with you. And that's not the type of person I want to be with. So, me being sober lets me see what his intentions are or his insecurities. And for me, I know this, like my dream man list, he's going to be obsessed that I'm sober. And and I can date men who drink. So, as long as he's confident and, not a full blown alcoholic, like my dad was, but at least like if he's a normal drinker and he's like, I love that you're not drinking, like I'm confident and I don't have a problem with alcohol, like it's okay. But if you're sober, you actually can see if you like the person, not like me. Like I would do
Mm-hmm.
anything for a guy to like me. Get blacked out, get drunk, sleep with them, even if I didn't like them. So again, it's about perspective of if you're getting drunk and you're finding yourself with not the greatest guys, why don't you just not drink and see if you can see those red flags faster? And I don't know anyone who's regretted not drinking on a date.
Yeah. I
Did you
know. I can't
ever
imagine
regretted
being
not
like,
drinking on
I
a
wish
date?
I was drunk on that date. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that that's ever been said, ever.
Right. I wish I was drunk. I wish I blacked out. I wish I got blacked out so he would like me. That just say that out loud. I'm going to drink so this guy likes me, drunk me. So that means he's not going to like the sober me. Like you said, he's going to think I'm boring. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not boring. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I want to be like, "Do you want to see me drunk?" Like,
You don't want to unleash that version of me, actually. It's in both of
right.
our best interests.
Right.
But it's true, I the yes, there's a vast difference in men who are mature and confident and men who aren't. And I think it shows you right there. Like if a guy is trying to convince you to drink, like whatever, like that in itself shows you the lack of confidence in that
That
man and
person.
what that man's intentions are. So like yes, so much of this conversation in dating and what you're looking for should be less about does he like me and more about do I even like this person, because I think that people show who they are really clearly, but if you have those beer goggles on you can't see it. It's too
Mhm.
blurry. We romanticize, we look at the little things and we're like, oh, I can look past that. Like yeah, because you just want a partner so bad, you just want to be in a relationship so bad. But it's not until you can like really see things 2020 clear vision that you're like, I actually like, no, this is not my match. This is not
And
my
there is
person.
some guys who, fine, if you want to be with a girl who has wine and goes and travels with you and goes to wineries and you want her to have wine, fine. That's just not going to be me. I actually was dating this guy in Miami when I lived there. Just we went on a few dates and he was totally fine that I didn't drink, but his preference was he loved to go out to clubs. And so I morphed myself into the sober club girl, and I just came to find, like, as a sober person through that experience, like, I then put on my list, like, I don't want to date a guy who likes to go to a club every weekend. That's the cool thing in sobriety. You're not going to know. For me, I didn't know who I wanted to be with. I started to gather information of through what I don't want. So I don't like through this experience with this guy. I don't want to date a guy who goes to the clubs. Okay, I have that information now. Or I'm okay. Like, I didn't know if I was okay dating a normal drinker guy. And I found out I'm totally cool with that. I feel comfortable. I'll go to wineries and have non alcoholic wine. And through that experience, I gathered that. Like, there's just, you can gather so much information about yourself and evidence about yourself going on dates sober. Like, think of it as you're just gathering information of who you want to be with. But when you're drunk, I don't know. Like
Right.
there's I don't know anything about myself,
Right.
or what I want in a partner. So
Right.
I hope that helps too, because sober dating is not easy. It's not
Yeah.
easy by any means. Like it is the one thing I struggle with honestly the most in my sobriety. Um and there's like all different reasons why it's not easy, but drunk dating is harder.
Yeah. What, if any, that you feel comfortable with sharing? Like,
Yeah.
what would be a reason why you find it to be hard for yourself?
Like I said, I struggle with, a lot. I mean, the last 2 years, when you go through a sober journey, there's like layers. It's like peeling back an onion, okay? And like you get rid of the alcohol and then you work on grief or however your timeline is. And then the last 2 years, I really worked on my relationship with the opposite sex, like the last three. Like that's what came up is like my attachment, styles, and a lot of my daddy issues came up. And that's knowing these things, I kind of have fear going on dates, putting myself out there, don't want to get hurt. My career's doing great, and I have been hurt multiple times in my sobriety. So sometimes I'm kind of like, I don't really want to,
Yeah.
put myself in these positions to get hurt, because you are more sensitive when you are sober. I think because you are showing up as your true you. So when you are rejected, it can hurt more.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're not wearing that shield. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the alcohol was almost like an armor in the sense that
Right.
like protected you, quote unquote,
Hmm.
from that pain. But then
Hmm.
without it, you're like straight vulnerable. It's like, this is
Yep.
me. So if I get shot, like, it's hitting me. Yeah, no, that makes sense. What are some boundaries that you've like noticed that you've instilled? And it doesn't only have to be with like dating, it could be friends, family, like just any boundaries that you feel like you had none of, prior to being sober that now you have.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't taught boundaries as a child. I grew up in a very toxic home. Dad alcoholic, mom, not mentally stable. Cops were called in my house. Mom was very verbally abusive. Dad was very verbally abusive. I mean, I did not know anything about mindfulness whatsoever until I got sober, because truthfully, when you get sober, you're almost like a little infant, and you have to reparent yourself. And I've done so much healing to understanding. I didn't even know what a boundary was when I got sober. Okay. So I think just learning and understanding and trying things, like for me, my beginning 2 years of my sobriety, I actually lived in Bali, Indonesia. So it was truthfully like the best boundary ever. Like I was taken away from my friends. I was not in social situations, and I just learned to love myself. And then I brought back home those tools of like what I need. Um, and when I first started setting boundaries, I almost got physically sick because I was such a people pleaser. I was so afraid people were going to abandon me. But I came to find that when I started setting boundaries, one, you'll find out who, benefited from you not having them. And two, you just start to realize like we both benefit from me having a boundary, like with my family or my sister. Because then you're pouring into your cup, and then you can better help serve other people. As it comes to like boundaries with dating, so obviously I'm over 5 years sober, so I can go on dates and be around. I go to nightclubs, I've traveled Europe, sober with drunk people. I think it just kind of depends on where you're at in your journey, but your sobriety has to come first. So don't put yourself in a position where a guy is wanting you to go out to a nightclub, in your first 6 months of sobriety. Like, what would be that? Won't benefit anyone.
Hmm.
So I guess it really just depends on like which area you're talking about. And with friends, um, I think just if someone doesn't like you being sober, they're benefiting from you being drunk in some way, and you'll start to see that. And now just being where I am, it's easier to set boundaries because I know who I am and I know what's going to trigger me or what type of friends I want. So you just gotta like try setting a boundary. see how it goes. And more than likely, you're going to be really happy. I've never regretted setting a boundary or letting a toxic person go out of my life. I'm
Right.
not sure if that really answered your
No,
question.
of course it does. I noticed that a big common theme, um, like another thing that you just mentioned being like abandonment. I think a big common theme when it comes to sobriety and boundaries and putting yourself first and all that. There's the mindset of like a fear of like you're losing something and you're missing something. And the crazy realization is that it's really all mental because it's not actually true. Like you don't actually lose anything. When you really think about it, it's like, okay, so when I don't drink alcohol, the only thing that I quote unquote lose is, not being plastered and making a fool out of myself, which there's no loss there. And then when I set a boundary and say, like, distance myself from like a certain friendship or relationship with, somebody who didn't make me feel great about myself sober, clearly had some sort of advantage or benefit to me being drunk, again, like, that's not a loss there. Like, that's not a good friend to have or person to have in your life. So, like, at the end of the day, like, it's like, what that saying that's like the trash is taking itself out. It's like, it's like the quite frankly, like all you're doing is making space for what better serves you. And yeah, like there's this big common theme with sobriety and boundaries. And I talk about this even in my confidence coaching of like just like in helping women raise their standards, because when you raise your standards and you have these requirements, in life. Granted, there's going to be people who don't meet those standards, who don't match those standards, who can't fulfill those requirements, and therefore they leave your life. It's all this thing over and over of us constantly feeling like we are going to be the ones to lose or miss out on something, when in reality, all we have is so much to gain. So it's really interesting, even hearing you say that, like to put that into perspective, like from you, it's like that right there is another prime example. Like, why do we constantly think that like we can't or shouldn't do these things to better our lives? Like, we have a fear that we're missing out on something, and it's
Mhm.
it's so not true.
Well, if you dissect the fear, okay, let's dissect the fear. If I get sober, I won't find love. Okay. Well, if I stay drunk, will I find love? Will I find the healthy love? Will I find the love of my life? Probably not. I think when you really take a look at the fear and you try to see it from a new perspective, it really helped me. So, again, if I choose sobriety, my fear is that I will die alone. Okay. But if I stay drunk, won't I end up, one, if alcohol is serious, you could die, or two, like I never was gonna find my dream man drunk. I was even in a long term relationship before I got fully sober. Love of my life. Love of my life. We drank and we are no longer together because of alcohol. And I think if we both got sober, like we would still be together 1,000,000%. So I knew that even in that moment, like if I kept drinking, we were, towards the end and we ended because of alcohol. So if you think about it that way too, like let's say you are in a relationship and you're like, well, my partner and I are drinking because that's how we connect. Trust me, on this side, if you drink, connect on alcohol, and then, things are going wild and crazy in your relationship because of alcohol, you're not going to last. So
Yeah.
you really have to think about that fear of, if I stop drinking, I'm going to be alone. Like, trust me, like, you're going to end up alone if you are a drinker like me. And I
Yeah.
would rather be alone in my sobriety in peace than ever be in a relationship where there's so much alcohol, but there's no peace. There's just none. And that's just from my experience in the relationships that I've had in my drinking days. I haven't had any long term relationships in my sobriety, though, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's because now you're more selective. Your
Yeah.
standards are raised. You're not going to just accept any old thing like, "Oh yeah, he likes me, so like sure, whatever." Like that's just so I always say like there's so much strength in singleness and in sobriety because it's a choice every single day, because it's real easy to pick up a drink, it's real easy to get on Hinge and find a guy to go sleep with. Like, it's
Oh
very
yeah.
easy. Like, look at what we look like. You think that we are single, we're single because we couldn't get a man? Like, get the fuck out of here.
I
Like,
love you. Thank
are
you.
you on crack? Like, no,
People
that's
look
not
at
it.
me like, why are you single? There's something wrong with you.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Like, you're not gonna tell me, like, because I remember, like, back when I was single and I was like posting things on TikTok, and like guys, like the trolls, they would always try to like comment, like talking shit. I'm like, you're not gonna tell me that I'm single because I can't get a man. No one's ever gonna convince me of that. I can get a man. Like, that's not the problem.
Can
The
you
problem,
imagine going on your page as a man and commenting that? It
yeah.
is so gross.
Right, exactly. I'm like, the problem is
So
certainly
cringe.
not that men are not attracted to me. That is not the issue. So let's start there, okay? So like, no one's gonna, like, at least for me, as somebody who's very socially aware and has high emotional intelligence, like, I would never look at you and be like, oh well, you're single and sober because like, not like, no, like, it's because of the fact that like now you finally could put yourself on the pedestal, and maybe beforehand you couldn't do that. And so now that you could put yourself on the pedestal and now you're looking down at everybody, it's like, none of you are worthy of this. So, but you'll find them. You'll find them. It's just, it
Yeah.
takes more time. There's so much strength in singleness and in sobriety. And so, like, it's a choice to, stay that strong. But by the time that you do meet your guy, like, it's going to be like magnetic. It's just going to
Mhm.
be really powerful. So, no, that don't, for anybody listening, like, the fear of thinking like, oh, but being sober, being single, like, then what do I have? Like, trust me, there is so much more to life. There's more to life than alcohol, and there's more to life than a
And there's
man.
more. Yeah, I was just kidding. There's more
Yeah,
to life than
there's more to life than a man. Like, this is coming from someone who is engaged, because people, like, always, when I was single, would be like, do you like being single? And I'm like, you're essentially asking me if I like my life. Like, I am single. So being single is like kind of like my identity. It's who I am. It's my life. Like, I was very independent. I was doing things on my own. Like, you're really going to ask me if I like that? Because the alternative would me being say, no, I don't like my life. Like, and why do we want that for anybody? We don't, like, you know what I mean? So this is coming from somebody who is getting married in a few months. Trust me, being single, you'll be fine. Like, being single, it's okay. You could want a partner, but trust me, it's okay. Like, life goes on. I promise. Um, with that being said, I love what you were saying about moderation around drinking, and like how it's just easier to be fully sober than it is to, do things in moderation and dabble here and there. And on that same token, I kind of want to shift it to talking about like intimacy and
Mhm.
celibacy and dating, because that was something I really like had to put my foot down. Was while I was single and dating, I was celibate. I used to talk about this on TikTok all the time, which now I kind of think about as like, wait, that's a little crazy that I was just like out there talking about my lack there of a sex life. But now, I'm reflecting and I'm looking back and I'm like, yes, like, I actually, like, that was something that I had to be really firm on, because it brings you, like you just said, the peace of mind. Like, it brings you so much peace of mind of knowing that sex is off the table, because when you're not celibate and you're going on dates, sex is always in the back of your head. Like, is he going to invite me over? Do I have to invite him over? Like, what if he tries to hook up with me? What am I going to do? And similar to alcohol, is like, alcohol is going to be there. Like, should I, shouldn't I? What should I not do? So with sex and celibacy and intimacy, it's like, he is really cute. There is chemistry. So should I, shouldn't I? So you kind of dabble with certain guys. You pick and choose who you'll hook up with, who you won't hook up with. Whereas when you're celibate, it's just off the table. And that peace of mind of like, it's a no. I don't care how cute you are. I don't care how much chemistry we had. We're gonna have to progress this to get to that point, no matter what. And it brings you that peace of mind of knowing, like, even if he invites me over, I have the power to say no. So I'm curious for you, like, how, if at all, celibacy and intimacy. Sorry, I meant to say actually intimacy. How intimacy and sobriety go hand in hand, and if you've experienced celibacy throughout this journey.
Yeah, I really love this conversation. And listen, when I was going through my journey, if I would have came across your page, I would have followed. So there is women out there that really needed to hear what you were sharing. So thank you. I think it's something that I'm working on sharing more because it's something that I really, to be honest, really, really struggled with. In my drinking days, I was the girl who would go out intentionally to find someone to hook up with. And I would call every single person just to get that fix after. I am okay sharing that. I understand. I was doing the best I could with the resources I had available. I saw sex as love. I was looking for any kind of attention, any kind of love, because I did not have any in myself. So then you're looking outside of yourself. So when I got sober, it's funny because in my drinking days, right, I would be just hooking up with people thinking I was confident sexually. But truthfully, in the end of the day, when you're drinking to have sex, it might show that you lack sexual confidence, right? So when I got sober, I ended up moving to Bali, right? I had not had sex in about 8 months. And I was not someone really who had sober sex, besides my long-term relationship and my drinking days. And so I was actually terrified to have sober sex with someone who at the time was my friend. And I was like, hey, like, I trust you. Let's hook up, see what happens. And it really did nothing for me because I wasn't truthfully like wanted to be with this person. I think again, I was just looking for something outside of myself to feel better because I was lonely. I struggled with codependency. So like being alone was like so scary. So after that relationship, I moved to Miami. Okay. So I don't want to say like I chose celibacy. I think that if there was an opportunity, I potentially would have had sex with someone. But I spent 2.5 years, no sex, no kissing, no nothing. And let me share, if anybody's listening, if you think of feminine energy, my business blew up. Like I mean, I even have the chills. Like skyrocketed. I didn't give a shit about guys. I was like, I want Sober Fit Girl to blow up. I want my business to blow up. And I know this because, and why I truly believe that if I had sex in those 2.5 years or got into a situation where I was like, because I do, when I like someone, it's like, I really fucking like them. And like, I put a lot of energy into that person, especially if they don't like me. I'm like me, even in sobriety. So, my business blew up. Now I broke my celibacy, okay, with someone. And all I wanted was my celibacy back because it fucked me up, to be honest. Like it really did some damage because it was a whole traumatizing experience. And I found out like I now probably will not have sex with someone until I am in a committed relationship, which I really, really have such a belief that when you're not giving your sexual energy to someone, especially someone who you don't want to give it to or you feel forced to, you are going to take all of that energy and put it somewhere else. I'm not saying like sex is bad whatsoever, but this is just my experience. And now I'm very discerning about who I sleep with. I've even tried casual sex recently. I hated it. Like it's not for me. And because like after I was like, oh, I just feel so gross. But this is what you learn in sobriety. It's like you get a chance to like explore your sexuality. And I will say that I am so much more sexually confident in the bedroom than I ever have been. And I am an extremely sexual person. So it was really cool to see myself from a completely different perspective that actually alcohol made me not cute sexually, to be honest. And the cool thing about this too is that if you're listening, a lot of people think, a lot of women think that to grow sexually confident is by sleeping with people, whereas it's more of an internal thing that I grew so confident in myself, my looks, my career, my everything, that when you do have sex with someone, you will feel confident because you are confident in yourself. Versus, let me sleep with a bunch of people and try different things and get confident. That's from my experience. I'm not sure if you can relate or if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. You know what? I will say that it's it's so true because I came out of celibacy more sexually confident,
Right.
which doesn't
Crazy.
yeah, like which doesn't make sense because it's like the lack of sex may you know what I mean? It's like the lack of
And it's hard to try to explain that
yeah,
to
I can't
someone.
even put it into words, but I will say um I think a lot of it has or at least for me, like had to do with um having confidence in having sex with that partner. Like,
Correct.
I think your partner is really important,
A
and, like,
hundred
your
percent.
connection to that partner is really important. Your actual interest, because like you said, like, you kinda did it with a friend just to do it because it was your friend, but, like, you didn't really wanna do it, then, like, you're never gonna come out of that with a good experience. Like, it's never you're
Mm-mm.
never gonna come out being like, "Oh, I see, I doubted it and it was great." Like, no, it's like when you go into it with those doubts, like, that's what's going to come to fruition. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of like I don't really know, like the second guessing yourself, like it's only gonna become the
Mm-hmm.
reality of
Mm-hmm.
like why did I even do that? And I know what you mean when you're like when you like broke it and you're like now you're like I wish I could get it back, like it's like the damage is done, like you can't get it back. But like then that's it, it's day one again, like you start over again and like you just I think what's most important and what the biggest like lesson that's been said over and over throughout this is like you through being really firm in these things, whether it be sobriety, be celibacy, like through being really firm where you don't do things moderately, you don't give yourself any like wiggle room and bending, is that you learn so much that by the time that like you come out on the other side, you're like you're that much better of a human being because of it. So then when if you do crack or whatever the case is, you're like, "Oh no, I'm going back to the like I felt so much better doing this
Mm-hmm.
thing." Like but you have to remove yourself from that thing like sex or whatever for so long. Like it has to be a long enough time away from it because otherwise if it's just like I tried it for a weekend and whatever and I'm back to it, like there's not enough time to like remove yourself from that.
Mm-hmm.
Once you
Mm-hmm.
give yourself that time, I think for you at that point, it was 8 months or whatever the case was, like you really like you learn so much, you grow so much, you get so strong. And like now you're essentially like your brain is rewired, you think differently, you act differently, you feel differently. And it's like I can't even go back to that version of me because I'm not that anymore. I'm
Mm-hmm.
detached from that. So
I
that's a
think
big
too, and
thing
I
that
want
you
to
learn.
share this to your listeners too, that the when I broke my celibacy after 2.5 years, one thing I realized in myself, and I want to share this to your listeners to help, is that I always led with sex. So I always led with confidence sexually more than I did just me. Like my personality, I always have been more confident sexually. So in that relationship that I had over a year ago than when I broke my celibacy, I led with sex. And so when you lead with sex and you hook up with someone, more than likely you are going to miss the red flags. So this is what I suggest doing. And there's just sometimes you can't control yourself, okay? But if you're really going in there, then there's that strong sexual connection, which I had with this person, like intense, like holy shit. I missed out on all of his red flags, every single one of them that was outside of sex. So just if you're listening, just something to think about, is potentially waiting can help you see if you're looking for a long-term partner.
Yeah.
As did you Do you feel like that you led with sex more, or
You know what? I think that what it was, it kind of goes back to what you were saying of like wanting to be liked. So
right?
like the guy led the way. So like I didn't really
Yeah,
say
okay.
no. If a
Mhm.
guy invited me over,
Same.
like I would go over his house, like I wasn't gonna be like no because I like,
Right.
oh my god, it's a Friday, you're picking me, like you're calling me,
Like
so I'm yeah, like I'm gonna come. Meanwhile, he probably asked 15 girls what they were
and
doing
you're
that
like,
night,
"I'll
and I was the one who took it. Like yeah, so it's like I think for me, like there were so many guys that I liked. And I actually, one of my very first podcast episodes, like I launched For the Girls in 2021. So 4 years ago was, the title of the episode is like, women fall for sex and men fall for emotion. And it was like one that like broke, like everyone was going crazy over it because they're like, no, it's the other way around. Men are the ones who want sex. Women are the ones who want emotion. I'm like, no, that's what we go for, but that's not what we fall for. Women fall in love through intimacy and sex and being close and that proximity, like being with a man physically, like in his presence, like, oh, but I slept over and we had breakfast in the morning. That's what makes us think like we're in this relationship now. Like I stayed over and I stayed till 12 o'clock the next day. That intimacy, that proximity, being in his bed makes a woman think we're close now, we're in this relationship now, and that man could do the same thing with another woman the next day. And it's he might be the one who initiated that, but that's not what's going to make him feel close
Right.
to you and fall in love with you. A man falls in love with the woman he has the most emotional connection with. Whereas women can emotionally connect with everybody. I'm emotionally connected to you right now. We're having an emotionally available conversation, an emotionally intelligent conversation. Like women can meet a girl in the bathroom at the bar and have an emotionally intelligent conversation and be like, I just connected with this girl and now we're gonna do lunch. Like we can just talk. We can connect with anybody. Men cannot. So when they do have that connection with a woman, that's when they fall in love. So it's like the thing that we're best at and that we do the most is actually like reverse of how we fall in love. And so for me, it was true. I had a guy friend who we were kind of like a friends with benefits situation. And I, at that time, this is again, I recorded this 4 years ago, but the relationship was before that. So it was like 5, 6 years ago, where I felt like the more I hooked up with him, then maybe we would end up together. And like, I just kept thinking like, yeah, if we have this friends with benefits connection, whatever, like yada, 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 long story short, like, no, he was never going to like me just because I kept hooking up with him. Like that wasn't what was going to happen. And so, we didn't have that connection that he, was looking for in a woman. And so I really, it's not to say that I like led with sex. I don't think that I did. Maybe I did. Maybe I have something to discover and look inward a little bit more on, but I definitely put the ball in a man's court. So if he
Right.
called me to come over, I was there. And whether sex or not happened didn't matter. It just like was like I was like, yeah, I like you, so I want that proximity. I want to be in your presence. Um, and so yeah, I think that it was like putting too much emphasis on how he feels about me and way less on like how I even felt about myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that, only good things can happen when you don't drink on a date.
Yeah.
For me, only bad things could happen when I drink. And you are choosing sobriety is truthfully the most confident and brave fucking thing you can do.
Yeah.
Bravest. So your
Yeah.
standards are like for yourself.
Yeah.
Like choosing to be alcohol free and again, sober curious, whatever that looks like, is you are raising your standards in every area of your life.
Mhm.
So through my experience with dating sober, like I have had low standards in my sobriety and I
Yeah.
have accepted bare minimum, but it's showing me what I do want through what I don't want. And that's, really important. Don't beat yourself up. Like I beat myself up so much for that. The person I was with intimately a year and some ago, like, why did I not see the red flags? Gosh, I would have, and it was really a rough, like emotional hangover
Yeah.
after we spent time together. And it's just, I learned about myself. Like, don't beat yourself up on this journey. It's like the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. 100%. So, couple little things to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I want to know, what are your key tips on still feeling sexy and maintaining confidence when being sober? And it could be dating sober or even just like being out with your girlfriends. Because, like we said before, that a lot of people normalize alcohol bringing them that liquid courage. So, if you're removing that from the equation, what's your key tip on building, having that confidence and still feeling sexy, completely
I
sober?
mean, always go out with your friends that make you feel the hottest. Like my best friends we're obsessed with each other. Like I call them the loves of my life. Like I will text them and be like, thank you for being the love of my life. Like my best friends are that. And I think that's one of my favorite is like always going out with people who want you to look hot. Like don't hang around women who, are judging each other and trying to chase like what guy can each of you get. Just that's a huge one for me is my friends make me feel so good and so confident. And a huge thing for me is my relationship with my body. I really work hard on what I eat and how I treat myself and resting and skincare and all these things that I couldn't do in my drinking days. And then the last one is perspective. And I know I keep repeating myself with this, but it's the would you rather game. Would you rather be the more quiet, confident girl, graceful, speaks slow, listens, is a part of the group, lets other people talk, showing up and like, yeah, I'm gonna have a soda water with lime and just like be you. Like those types of women I would see out. I'm like, I want that. I want that. So get yourself, I call them expanders, like expand women that expands your mindset of like who you want to be and focus on that. Versus I'm going to fit in, I have to drink, sexy, sober, I mean getting drunk is sexy. It's really about perspective and like wearing the clothes you want to wear. Like I have my own style now. I don't try to be like anybody else. That's what makes me feel better is like not comparing myself to other people. And again, I never got that until I got sober. In my first 2 years of sobriety though, I was so insecure. I like couldn't even I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I wanted to be. Um but I knew who I didn't want to be, and I didn't want to be the drunk, sloppy girl anymore. And I hope that helps. Just the big one though is having solid, amazing girlfriends that are obsessed with you. Like
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with. I'm a girl's girl. Like I
Yeah.
want all my friends to be hot. Dating the hottest people, be successful. Have the sickest bodies, be rich as shit. Like just them to have all of the things. And if you're hanging around women that are consistently picking and comparing, it's gonna hard to be feeling confident.
Yeah. No, it is so true. It's so true. And the last one would be, if you have any like tangible, any little nuggets, like what would be something that you could share with a girl who's like, all right, I hear you. I'm ready to do this. And I'm ready to date sober, but I need that one little piece of advice on how to loosen up on a date. Like I'm going into this date completely sober, whereas typically I would use a drink or take a shot to loosen up a little bit. How can I ease my tension sober?
So for me, community is the most important, and I know I don't even know if that's like the most perfect answer, but like for me, like checking in with someone before a date to journal, like what is this date gonna look like if I drink, and what is this date gonna look like if I'm sober, always eases my mind. And also, this one just came to my mind. The first 30 minutes of any social situation is going to feel hard. But once you pass that first 30 minutes of like, the initial when you sit down at a dinner table, it's like everybody's ordering drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that can feel such anxiety, but just like say to yourself, like, I just got to get through these first 30 minutes. And then my favorite tool to conversations in dating is be interested instead of interesting. So asking questions, because I in my first like when I've sober dated before I had this tool, I would get asked questions and then I would almost overshare. So it started and then the conversation's going. Now I'm like telling him about my dead dad and like, whoa, like slow down. So like you share less and ask more and listen more, which really helps me just like with everything, even meeting new friends. But again, the biggest tool is if you are really struggling with alcohol and you want to date, having a mentor and a community is the number one. Like, hey, I'm going on a date. Like my clients will be like, hey, Kat, I'm going on a date. This is who he is. And I'll be like, okay, like what's the location? Where are you guys going? How are you feeling? What's your fear? And most of the time, like the big thing is I'll have to say to them, like, the environment is not going to benefit you. So trying to say, hey, maybe can we do this instead. And another one too that has really helped me, and this is your choice if where you're at on your journey, is I don't tell people I'm sober. I don't say like I will even say like, do you want to go grab a drink? That's me now. And then when I'm there, I'll just say like, oh yeah, I'm not drinking tonight. Like I think like, just ease into what you want to share. And of course at some point, but then they're actually getting to know the you versus, okay, this girl's sober, and then they're creating all these stories. Whereas you want to create your own story. That's really helped me too. But then there's, if you're in the first year of sobriety, it might be really important for you to say, like, I don't drink because I can handle this, sober dating easier now.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And it's like it doesn't have to be. I think that people get nervous about, because girls would even say to me back when I would make those TikTok videos talking about like being celibate, whatever, girls would say to me, like, how do you tell a guy you're celibate? I'm like, you think that I'm telling a guy that I'm celibate? Like, you think that I'm matching with a guy on Hinge and being like, "It's so nice to meet you. Just want to let you know, like, I'm certainly not fucking you." Like, no, I'm not saying that. Like,
I mean, I these days I might.
no, like I didn't say it at all. Like
Yeah, same.
if there was ever an invitation or something, I would just say no. Like just no. Like I don't think that you have to broadcast it and tattoo it to your forehead. Like it can be as simple as just saying no. No, I don't want to. No, I'm not interested. Or just no, period, because no is a full sentence. And it's just no. And then like as you get to know someone, then you could share, a little bit more. But for
Mhm.
me, like I did not think that it needed to be what I led with. Like I don't think that you need to off the bat say, by the way, I'm sober. I mean, or by the way, I'm celibate. Like I just don't think, like, it goes back to the very original point of like all of these things are so normalized that it's almost like crazy to say that you don't partake in it. So
Mhm.
I
I
don't
mean,
I
there was sorry, go
no,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't think that we have to feed into that. I think we can just normalize not doing the thing.
There was this one time after my 2.5 years of celibacy, I told the guy, I was like, I haven't had sex in 2.5 years. Now, you can see this from multiple perspectives. Like, I do feel that I overshare, but also at the same time, he then ghosted me because he didn't want me to get attached to him because I was celibate. And then if I had sex with him, he was like, oh, then she'll want to be, my girlfriend. So at some reason, I'm so happy I did because then we didn't have sex because he wasn't looking for a long term relationship. But then also on the flip side, I felt like I overshared. So, I mean, you can't do wrong
I
either,
know. I know. No, you
I just,
honestly, that was a blessing
I'll
in
never forget. I was
disguise.
like, oh my God, I can't believe I told this guy, like, while we're making out, like, just so you know, I haven't had sex in 2.5 years. And he literally didn't have sex with me.
He's like, "Er, never
I
mind."
know.
He's like, let's rewind. But like, no, it's the best thing that you could have done because
Yes.
it's
So
weeding
happy.
out the wrong people. It's
Yeah.
just eliminating. Like, we cannot think that we are doing anything wrong by telling the truth. Like,
Right.
the truth of the
Right.
matter is, I've been celibate for 2.5 years.
And trust your intuition too.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like you want to feel safe to tell the person and you're going to gather information about them, great. Like, you can't do wrong.
Right. No, it's It's so true. You know what? I think that like us women who overshare, we have a gift because we scare people away.
No,
And like that
like
was a
they,
that
yeah.
was a thing for me that like I hated when I was single and dating. Like I was such an oversharer. And like I would literally actually come home and then overshare on TikTok about how I overshared on my date.
I
Like I would just
know.
like come home and be like, so this is the date that I just
TikTok
went
is
on, and
for
here
girls,
well,
so
yeah, I know. Well, trust me, I had a few texts from the guys too, being like, "Hey, I saw your TikTok." I'm like, "What's your account so I could block you real quick?" But yeah, like I was the same way. I would overshare, but you know what? I've shared this story a few times. I'll say it again for anyone who's a new listener that's listening to this episode, and of course, it'd be the first time you're hearing it. I used to really like kind of beat myself up over it. Like I would go home from a date and again sober. So I'm well aware of like what I'm saying and doing. And I'm like, why do I overshare so much? Like why did I need to say all of that? Like why like I don't it's like they ask a question, the answer could be yes or no, but I gave them a thesis on why. Like, you know what I mean? And so I hated that I would talk so much. But like when you really think about it, it's like I'm a podcast host. Talking is my job. Like it's just who I am. I used to get straight A's and then a C in conduct because I couldn't stop talking. Like I'm just a talkative person. Long story short, I met my now fiance. And of course, you know, once we started dating, I did what every girl does when they like have a boyfriend. It's like, so what did you like about me on the first date? Why did we keep going out? Why did you like me? What were your favorite things about me? And he said to me, I loved how talkative you were. He was like, you made it our first date just like so easy because like it could be awkward and uncomfortable. Like we were like set up on pretty much a blind date. Like so it could be really uncomfortable. We didn't like meet on a dating app where we talked for weeks and like whatever. Like it was just like straight off the bat starting from scratch. Even when we did text, we were like if ever a question was asked, we were like let's table that for when we meet and we'll talk about it. So like we were fully going from scratch. And that could be a little uncomfortable and a little awkward. And he was like, you were so down to earth, so easy to talk to. I loved that you talked a lot. And like, we just like, we had conversations all night. Long story short, moral of the story is like, you know, the things that like you might say now like, oh my god, why did I do that, why did I overshare, whatever, like someone is going to find to be the most beautiful thing about you and the most endearing thing about you. And so that's what happened for me. And I used to hate that I talk so much, but listen, it got me a husband, so I
and a
can't be a
career.
man and a career, so there you go.
No, I love that.
So that is really that. Then any last words that you would like to share with the girls before we log off?
No, just be yourself. Just be yourself. There is no right and wrong in dating. My only wrong was drinking. That's from my experience. And
Yeah.
I want to share this to the single girls. So I'm single and I know it can feel really, really lonely. And I just don't want anyone to give up, before a miracle happens. And this is what's been helping me. Okay. I'm 35 years old. I'm single, and it's very easy for me to compare myself to women who are younger and getting married and having kids. And this is what helps. So I said to myself, let's say I'm 40 years old and I meet the love of my life. And I regret the last 5 years of obsessing about shitbags and losers and trying to get them to like me and missing out on career opportunities. Just know that it's coming and don't regret not having fun in your single days, because my best friends are my boyfriends. My girlfriends are the loves of my life. I travel with them. I treat them like a romantic partner. We do really romantic things together. And that's what's really helped me be okay in my sobriety. It's just you don't ever want to look back and regret being and having fun being single. Because if you ask a lot of people who are in relationships that have been I mean, I have tons of clients that have been are in relationships forever. They're like, just enjoy your single days, just enjoy your single days. And I want to enjoy those. And it's never too late. So I hope that helps, because I struggle with that sometimes, and I get in really sad, lonely holes. But just know that if you are feeling good and amazing and confident, and there's no chance you're gonna die alone, and to have fun along the way, and don't put any of your energy into losers, please. Just don't.
Title of the episode: Don't put your
Put
energy into
energy
losers.
into losers.
I love that, Kathryn. Thank you so much for
You're so
sharing. Where can all
welcome.
of the girls connect with you and find you online?
Yeah, so my personal TikTok is Kathryn Sauser, same with my Instagram, and then SoberFitGirl is the SoberFitGirl on Instagram, and the SoberFitGirl podcast is all, we talk about sober dating, healing, trauma, fitness, all the great things. So you can find me there.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.